then Ria, just really quick, so when it comes to the non-monogamy thing, you in your pre-show messages to us said that you consider yourself a feminist / leftist. Do your views on that sort of stuff have they motivated you when it comes to your views on non-monogamy?
Maybe. I mean, I want to talk about the history of monogamy. I mean, do we know where monogamy came from and why it's now the default to our society?
Well, I think, okay,
I think it's default for a reason.
I think there's...
But do we know how it became to be the default?
It's based on procreation, I would imagine.
Because
like for human civilization to advance, they like...
Into the mic, please.
I would imagine it's based on procreation and what makes human civilization advance the best.
You wanted to come in, go ahead.
Yeah, I do know that humans as a species, we have very altricial young, so that means they require a lot of care, especially in their early stages, and I think that's where the idea, or I guess cultural means of monogamy has kind of surfaced from, is that need for not only just another partner, but a village to really help raise a child to survive into adulthood.
Also, I think a lot of people like want to be just together. It's like the feeling of love and like finding a special person that you can build a life with.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think I mentioned this earlier, but I think men have a pretty vested interest in monogamy insofar as the paternity certainty component. So back in the day, if a woman had multiple sexual partners, that's another reason, in addition to just monogamy, why virginity was so valued. If a woman was promiscuous or had multiple sexual partners, there was no way in the past, pretty much up until 40 years ago, for people to determine who is the father of a child. And sometimes I think perhaps women don't realize how important that is, because as a woman, if you have a kid, you know for certain that that's your child. However, as a man, absent the paternity test, or you know that she's a virgin and she's only been with you, there's a component of paternity uncertainty, which is pretty much, if you're raising a child that you think is yours but is not, that's pretty much the biggest L that you can take.
I also think it's a way that in society people like use to control and oppress women as well as that.
Wait, what?
Like valuing monogamy? Virginity so much.
How does that oppress women?
Well, because sometimes they'll be told that they're worthless if they have that, or they'll be controlled and only have certain things that they can do because on the basis that they need to maintain their virginity.
Well, I mean, okay, so there's a religious component that I suppose started about 2,000 years ago. Yeah. I think chastity was valued up until very recently for both men and women, for religious reasons, chiefly. Although that's kind of been eroded away by modernity, I guess you could say, but...
I mean, I think if you want to look at like male-female sexual relations for 99.999% of human history, you need to get out of the mindset of like our modern dynamic. Right now, we've got birth control, we've got abortions, we've got so many things that you can use to sort of interfere with that natural system. But that's not how it was for most of human history. Like as a man, if you are going to be raising a child, you want to make sure with 100% certainty it is your child. You don't want a woman that is sleeping with multiple men, because then you don't know what's going on, right? This is one of the reasons why virginity is so valuable back in the day.
I understand that, and I think that that's true. I'm just saying I feel like that can be used like on the guise of that to like control women as well, like more so.
Well, I think that, like Brian pointed out, I think that
women being abused or not having say over themselves, because that is like the main thing that men are concerned about is her virginity, and that can go above her like condition and her right.
Well, Matt brought up
history.
Matt brought up a really good point about birth control, and so ignoring the paternity uncertainty thing, this was something that would fall more so upon women. If you engaged in sex with somebody prior to there being birth control, like pretty good chance you might get pregnant and can't get like, I mean, abortions are fairly, well, I mean, there's history, but in any case, without birth control and without abortion, you know, there wasn't, 300 years ago, if you have sex with somebody, like, not really a way out if you get pregnant, or there's not really a way to prevent a pregnancy. So I don't think it's about control. It's just the biological reality that if you get pregnant, like, that's kind of a big deal. And especially without modern healthcare too.
I think,
like, the healthcare, if you got pregnant as a woman, like, bro, there's a chance you fucking die.
I think that you can imagine in a world, like, let me ask you this, in a world where there's no birth control and you've got a very high risk of getting pregnant if you have sex with a man, are you going to be as promiscuous in that world as you are in this world? Probably not, because there's a very high chance that man you just had sort of casual, promiscuous, flippant sex with, you might get pregnant. You might be tied down for life with that man. You got to carry his child into the world and deal with that man for the rest of your life. And so it's from a female's point of view also, 100 years ago, 200, 300, 1,000 years ago. As a woman, you probably don't want to be promiscuous either. It's not a man keeping you down. It's you don't want to be promiscuous, because if you have sex with that man, you might be tied down forever with that guy. You bring his child into this world. Your body gets pregnant. You go through crazy changes, right? It's in the woman's interest, back then at least. It's a different conversation now that we have birth control, I guess. But for most human history, it's in the woman's interest to not be promiscuous either. It's in the man's and the woman's.
Well, actually, it wasn't, according to research, it really wasn't until the 18th century, during the movement of Romanticism, that people started really getting into monogamy. Like, when the Romanticism movement started, that's when people started really giving into the idea of having their one true love and their one true soulmate. But prior to the 18th century and the 17th century,
people were just fucking like crazy.
I don't think that's true at all.
monogamy, people weren't super into monogamy like we are now today.
It's different, because it was, what you're talking about is people talking about finding their true love or their soulmate, whereas before it wasn't so much based on initial feelings or romanticizing a relationship, and more about just that dying commitment that this is my spouse and I'm going to learn to love them and commit to love them for the rest of my life. And there was like a lot less, I don't know, fairy tale glitter rosy colored glasses around the idea of love and sacrifice.
I feel like
arranged marriages and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like prior to the Romanticism movement, people more so got married for logistics, because I feel like there was research that I saw that.
What's the purpose of marriage? What do you say?
I feel like just financial reasons.
To raise
like
kids?
I feel like, yeah, to raise kids.
Okay.
It's easier to raise kids when you're married, I feel like.
So, I mean, you mentioned logistic reasons. But,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, to raise kids.
Yeah, but with the history of monogamy, prior to 1 AD, before Christianity started becoming, more of a thing, monogamy really wasn't that common.
Where?
According to history, like around the world, I feel like monogamy, based on the research that I've personally seen, and you guys can, of course, fact check it. Based on the research that I've seen, like, monogamy wasn't really, this thing that was going around the world until the 1850s, when Western imperialism became a thing, and white people started going around the world saying, "Oh, monogamy is the way to go," because I don't understand.
This is just not true at all, though. If you look at pre-biblical India, they're pro-monogamy. If you read the Quran or the Bhagavad Gita, they're talking about monogamy. They're talking about the beauty and sanctity of a male-female relationship. If you look at
actually, the Quran describes it beautifully, and commentary on the Quran, it describes marriage as two souls becoming one essence, which is really beautiful.
I feel like the spread of disease is also a big driver for monogamy.
Yeah, that's a really good point you bring up there. If you're monogamous,
but people who are non-monogamous and practice non-monogamy, when they have sex with other people, they know to use protection, whereas I know of a lot of people who are in monogamous relationships who still end up getting STDs because when their partners cheat on them, they're not using protection.
Yeah, but you can also get cheated on in a non-monogamous relationship too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would take a lot of trust.
And then also, I mean, certainly the odds of getting an STD is, I would say it's greater in non-monogamous relationships than monogamous relationships.
is.
But you mentioned protection. I mean, protection is not foolproof deterrent to getting an STD.
No, but it's a preventative measure.
It is a preventative measure, but like take, for example, herpes. You can, even if you're wearing a condom, like you can still get herpes. Like, because you could have an outbreak like on the base of the fucking. Am I gonna describe the anatomy here?
Break too, you know.
But I mean, let's also be honest too. Like, people really be out here fucking without condoms. Like, let's be honest, Con.
Yeah.
But I don't
Come
think-
on, look at the smile
If
on
I
their
can-
face. They be fucking.
I mean, it feels
She be fucking
better.
without a condom. Come on, bro.
I feel like the problem isn't about monogamy or non-monogamy because I think everyone assumes a certain risk when they do engage in sexual activity. I think it's the problem with having a conversation and being open with your partners or partner about those different things.
Yeah. Well, I think also when it comes to raising a family, I don't know if that's an ideal family dynamic to have
In what
like,
way?
huh?
Like, do you want to elaborate?
Well, like if like there's one mom and like three fathers, I don't know, it's a little, that might be a little, there's going to be like infighting, and then like if there's offspring, or maybe I shouldn't say offspring, if there's children.
I think there's also more to a marriage than just raising children and having children, although one of the fruits of marriage is childbearing and having children.
I mean, isn't that
It's-
the primary reason of marriage?
It's
Besides
twofold.
solidifying a
More-
relationship, like you
yeah.
can be married and not have children.
Learning
You- no,
from
you
each
can,
other, like
but-
growing with someone.
It's the love and commitment, actually. Like, if you look at the purpose of marriage, it's to love your spouse unconditionally, although that's, I mean, that people think nowadays that you can get married and that it's not forever. Although, I mean, in the design of marriage and in the design of humanity, who you commit your life to in marriage should be forever, and with the goal that you'll be married until death do you part. So the purpose of marriage is to love one another sacrificially and wholly, and then as a result of that love, children are the fruit of it.
We have two super chats here we have to react to. We have Ryan, the Eating Warrior. Hey, man, good to see you in the chat again. Thank you for the $50 super chat, man. Really appreciate it. Monogamy was enacted to stabilize societies and to help prevent the spread of diseases. Quick Google search. Hey, Ryan, the Eating Warrior. Good to see you back in the chat, man.